Welcome to the current situation. My name is Jordan Pace. Josh is not with us this week. He is on assignment doing some other things. This is your soon-to-be weekly South Carolina Political Pulse. Today we have author, Professor Drew Baker here to talk to us about his new book, Why Democrats Are Dangerous. Drew, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So you've written this book. Well, before we get to the book, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and why you decided, I need to write this field guide to the left and what they're doing.
Okay. So don't hold this against me, but I'm a native New Yorker, but I did escape. So that should count as a plus.
Absolutely.
So after going to public school, I studied economics at Dartmouth College and then got an MBA with an emphasis in finance at the University of Chicago, and then raised my family in the Chicago land area. And after a 31-year career, we wanted to do something different and escape Chicago winters. So I ended up teaching business and economics at Brevard College in Brevard, North Carolina for 10 years, and absolutely loved that process, and have been retired for about 7 years now. I've been interested in politics ever since I was about 12 years old.
What got you interested in politics? As someone who also was interested in politics at 12 years old, I'm always curious to hear what got you involved with it.
Well, at 12 years old, I was sitting there one night watching the Democratic Convention in 1968 as riots broke out, and Mayor Daley and his cops came in and started beating people over the head with clubs and dragging them into paddy wagons, and then watched the convention from there. So it was kind of like sitting there saying, that's a strange way to run a country. And then that kind of followed up with when I was about 14, a couple of years later, my sister started dating someone who she eventually married, who turned out, his name is Mike Rosen, who turned out to be like the conservative voice in Denver radio and television for 20, 30 years. Mm-hmm. So at age 14, 15, I was reading National Review, and he steered me towards Milton Friedman and Ayn Rand and Thomas Sowell and other kinds of people like that. So
phenomenal.
So, and then obviously, again, after that, went to some fairly conservative, business-oriented education in economics and finance.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was a religion and political science major in college, and after that, I discovered economics. So I deeply appreciate Sowell and Friedman and Hayek, and probably more of pretty much a Rothbard-oriented Austrian school, it's kind of my jam. But, that's awesome.
Well, it's kind of pretty much every student that came out of my macroeconomics class said in their end of semester comments, everybody should take this class, which I completely agree with. So even the first 2 weeks of it, where you lay the basic concepts of economics down, is things that are really important and things that I think a lot of liberals don't understand.
The number one book I beg my colleagues in the House to read is Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt. Mm-hmm. It is short, sweet. If they can get that, no matter what side of the aisle they're on, I think we can have better conversations. And a few have taken me up on it, so that's good. Cool. But what led you to say, I've got to write this book? What series of events kind of pushed you to do that?
So this is kind of getting back into the first couple of years of the first Trump administration, when things were starting to get uglier and uglier, and impeachments were taking place, and kind of people were becoming more divisive, and the language was becoming more brutal. I just felt the need to kind of get a group together and say, what is going on here, and how can we kind of turn the temperature down? So I formed a group of 3 liberals and 3 conservatives, and we met weekly, spent some time getting to know each other, and then started diving into kind of the issues of the day. And also took a very deep dive into immigration. So really kind of laid out a whole bunch of policies and decided kind of what could we agree with and what could we not come to agreement on. Right. And kind of the interesting thing out of that process was, on the deep dive, when we really got down into the details, there was a lot of agreement between us. And these were very liberal people and very conservative people. But on issues like, do we really want to take the Dreamers and deport them? The answer was no. Do we want to take, the guy who's been working at a landscaping firm for 25 years and supporting his family and deport him? And the answer was no. Do we need better immigration laws in terms of who's allowed in and, who gets to stay and when deportation takes place? Absolutely. So that was great. But then when we started talking about the day-to-day items, the best way I can describe it is it eventually became like trying to take the Berlin Wall down with a pea shooter.
Okay.
It would repeatedly make comments about, okay, this is a bad policy because of these economic principles, or this isn't going to work because in business, you can't really have this happen. And it was just as if, cognitive dissonance was preventing them from understanding it. So another one of the conservatives and I decided to leave the group. And in fact, the group is still going, but we left probably 3 years ago or so. And that whole experience has kind of festered around in me for a while. And then probably going to be about a year and a half ago, I started writing a book that I tentatively titled 99 Things Democrats Do That Drive You Crazy. Believe it or not, I came up with 99.
No, that sounds like something like a Rush Limbaugh title. I like that.
So anyway, I had the blank sheet of paper. I wrote down the list of these things, just a quick list, and then started fleshing out each one of those, and eventually got to where I had 90 of them or so pretty well written out, and said, well, I can't just have these in a random order. Let's organize them. And so I kind of looked at it and said, well, this one seems to be related to this, and these two are related to these other three. And when I put a title onto the 6 sections that emerged, the titles of the sections came out that it demonstrated the Democrats were ignorant, that they were unrealistic, that they were deceitful, in some cases ruthless, always unaccountable for their bad decisions, and also were very strategic in terms of what they were doing over the long term.
Right.
So when I looked at those 6, I said, this isn't just annoying or frustrating, this is dangerous. And so that's where the title shifted over to Why Democrats Are Dangerous. So every one of those sections leads into Democrats are dangerous because they are ruthless, ignorant, etc. And on the ignorant side, it's mostly, things that you would expect, like the Constitution, American business practice, macroeconomics, those kinds of things.
How money works and how economics works.
Oh, yeah, all those things. And even just down to basic levels, like, one of the things you learn in day 1 or 2 of economics class is that people act in their own self-interest. That's kind of the whole basis of economics. And Democrats regularly ignore that. The rules where you see criminals commit a crime and get let out, and then commit another crime and get let out, they're acting in their own self-interest because there's no punishment. Also leads into the next thing you learn in economics, which is people respond to incentives and disincentives. So if there are no disincentives and there are a lot of incentives to commit crime, they'll continue to do it. So those are the pea shooter kinds of things. It was just like, it seemed like Democrats were impenetrable to that kind of thinking.
When you were having those discussions, like in that discussion group, did you find that there was also kind of an ignorance of biblical principles too? Like what comes to mind when you're talking about the violent actors getting let out? About Proverbs, I think it's Proverbs 22. It says, the mercy of the wicked is a curse. When judges give mercy to violent criminals over and over again, it's actually cursing their victims.
I mean, I think they did indirectly. We were, I would say, probably half the group were not churchgoers, and then we had, UU people and
gotcha.
A Catholic and some Protestants. So we really try to keep the discussion primarily to politics. But I think that those same business or those same biblical principles apply to what we're talking about.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
so again, that's how the book developed, and then I wrote it, got it published, and now in the process of marketing it, which I am discovering is harder than writing it. So
it can be, yeah.
So that's where I'm at.
Well, when you were writing it, were there any groups of individuals that you were hoping that would read it? And if so, what were you hoping they would take away from it?
Yeah, most definitely. So if someone is looking for a deep theoretical treatise that goes on for hundreds and hundreds of pages, that is not what I tried to write.
Okay.
The three groups
Hans Hermann Hoppe.
No, no. So the
Gotcha.
three groups I had in mind, given my college experience, kind of the primary one was high school and college students.
Hmm.
And, I was watching what Charlie Kirk was doing at the time. And, it would be great to have a book to go along with the kinds of things he's trying to do. And then the second group are Republicans who are just looking for a quick overview. So the book is only 110 pages long. It's
Hmm.
intentionally short, but it's comprehensive. There are 94 different topics of Democratic strategies, tactics, and shenanigans that are grouped into those six categories. And
Yeah.
then the third group was, as I was writing it, I was seeing the approval polls of the Democratic Party among Democrats dropping and dropping and dropping. So, the last one I saw was that the Democratic Party only has a 37% approval rating among Democrats.
Wow.
So, and I've been getting back into social media, to help market the thing. And when
Hmm.
you go to different websites, especially on Reddit, it's like even there are a couple called Ask Conservatives or Republicans. Very frequently you see Democrats coming in and saying, I always believed this about
Hmm.
Republicans or Trump or whoever it is. But, when I started to look at it, I discovered that that's just not true. And I've had this experience with some individuals in my life where diehard Democrats get one little opening like that where they say, what they've been telling me for 10 years is just not true.
Yeah.
A classic example would be, Trump did not say he would be a dictator on day one,
Right.
which was repeated hundreds of times. He said the words, but they were taken completely out of context, which is one of the 94
Yeah. Well,
topics in the books. They take things out of context. Um,
another
so
example of
when
that,
so
I
what
think,
I've
would be
observed is that when Democrats get that opening, just one opening, and say this thing isn't true, all of a
right.
sudden, kind of the whole kaleidoscope opens up to saying maybe all these other things aren't true either. So that's kind of
Uh,
the third group I'm looking at.
Almost like you get put a crack in the windshield, and then
Yeah,
it starts to run. Right.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of the analogy in my mind
And
of,
eventually, you have to call Safeway.
right. Yeah. You got to call somebody to replace it, or you lose the windshield. Right. In this case, you want them to that glass to break and their eyes to be opened and scales to fall off their eyes.
Yeah, and kind of along those lines, I intentionally wrote it with a couple of things in mind.
Mhm.
So the table of contents is structured to be a diagnostic tool for people. So if you hear Chuck Schumer spouting about something on the morning news, if you just flip to the table of contents of the book and go down it, you can say, oh, I see what he's doing. He's taking those words out of context, or
Mhm.
he's avoiding the concept of this issue that's behind the Republicans' position on this issue and just
Right.
name calling them.
Right.
Um, so that's kind of one thing that it was written at. And then with the other, I've been frustrated for decades about the Republicans' inability to position Democrats in the same way that Democrats position Republicans.
Yep.
So it's very effective propaganda, as defined classically, to
Right.
say, to repeat lies over and over and over and over again, and to do it in a way that forms a consistent message. So when you say extreme MAGA Republican, when you say people will die, when you say that Trump is cruel back in the day when he's putting babies in cages,
Mhm.
it's all things that reinforce the same message of, evil, uncaring policies. And so the
Right.
Republicans have never done that. Republicans will argue the details of the proposal, the economic position, the
Mhm.
business rationale for it, but they have never tried to position Democrats in the same way that they
Do you
have
think that's
allowed themselves to be positioned.
Do you think that's part of why Trump has been so successful is because he's a marketing guy and he nails that end of things better than any other Republican in recent history?
I do. There's a whole number of reasons that I think he's been effective, but
Right.
I think that's certainly part of it.
Mhm.
And in many ways, so I am a fan of President Trump's. I wish the administration would do a better job of communication in terms of
Mhm.
what they're doing. So as an example, I think the tariff strategy is brilliant on a number of fronts. I mean, it takes care of national security. It takes care of helping to reduce the deficit. It takes care of bringing jobs to the United States. But the way it's presented is not someone calm, explaining these things. It's scattershot, which I think, again, can play into the Democratic Party's positioning of Republicans. So anyway, to get back to the positioning thing, the overarching theme of Democrats, why Democrats are dangerous, can be a potential positioning theme. And then underneath that, they're dangerous because they have long-run strategic plans that are not for the benefit of the country. They're unrealistic. They're ignorant about basic economics, things like that. So again, those are the kinds of things that could be repeated over and over.
Yeah. What are I mean, I think I know the answer to this, but like what's an example of kind of those long-term plans that they're trying to push that are detrimental to the country, that are bad for everybody except for that select few?
Well, number one, and I was glad to see that you guys had a podcast on this, is education. So to me, school choice is the number one issue in the country because you got to break the Democratic hold on education. And that started back, unfortunately, I'm old enough to remember this, but back in the Vietnam War era, in the early days of it, you used to get an exemption if you stayed in college and then stayed in graduate school after that. So a number of people who were against the war and likely to be liberal ended up as professors. And then those professors grew up in importance and tenure, and they hired other liberal professors. And then they
cascaded.
They started training, their students who went out in the world to do various things. They started training the teachers who then went into the K through 12 classrooms. So that stranglehold on education to me is really important to fix. Other examples of the strategies, I think, would be the whole soft on crime issue is just mind-boggling to me. I mean, that poor lady who was attacked and killed on the New York subway to a man who had been arrested 39 times is inconceivable to me. But yet the strategy there is to elect liberal district attorneys in order to create this kind of chaos and unrest in the country.
Yeah. And that's not a new thing for them. I think there was a very similar playbook in the Russian Revolution in the 19-teens, where Lenin and the Bolsheviks were very intentional about loosing criminals from prison. And Stalin gained his position within the Bolsheviks by robbing trains. Like that was his nom de plume was the train robberies in Georgia and all the way through the Caucasus. So
and
it's
then,
not a good thing.
you can get into the whole immigration, their approach to immigration, which I think has backfired on them. I think they were counting on Hispanics to be their road to the permanent majority, and Hispanics are the most God-fearing, hardworking people going, so they naturally align with Republicans. But also, way back in media, their capture of Hollywood, their capture of comedy, are also like long-proven techniques of propaganda. So as I kind of think back on that, the first thing I remember is when Saturday Night Live was first on, Chevy Chase did Gerald Ford, who was probably the most athletically gifted president we ever had. And he portrayed him as kind of a bumbling, stumbling fool.
Right.
And again, it's hard to compete with comedy like that. And obviously they've torn down every Republican president since, irrespective of what they've been doing. So
it's literally from their playbook.
All those things permeate the culture. They permeate people's minds and eventually permeate what actually happens in the world.
I think that's literally one of the planks within Alinsky's rules for radicals is mock your enemy and make fun of them. That's one of your strongest weapons that they have.
That's on about page 98 or so.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And for those who haven't read it,
I'll just leave this as a teaser. But when I was researching propaganda, because I know the Democrats use it, and came across a description by some of the top experts who've written textbooks on propaganda. And they analyzed Hitler's war propaganda from chapter 6 of Mein Kampf. If you read the book, you will find a chilling parallel to what the Democrats do. So one of them, for example, is find a special enemy. This is right out of Mein Kampf. So obviously with Hitler, it was the Jews. With Democrats, it's Donald Trump.
Huh. Wow. I mean, that's...
I had chills when I read this stuff and started summarizing it.
Right. Wow. Assuming folks get your book, and we hope they do, once they read it, what do they do with it? What do you hope how do they apply it?
Well, it depends on the group. So, with students, I would hope that they would ask more questions, that they would, go to things like the Ask Conservative subreddit on Reddit, that they would attend. I'm hoping the Turning Point will continue, strong, go to a Turning Point session. To ask their conservative friends and kind of just reach out. With Democrats, I hope they would do the same. If they see that crack in the armor and they see some light coming through, pursue it, read. And the key there is get out of your information bubble. Social media filters are keeping the truth for them. That was a big part of the group, was that they had never seen the information that the conservatives had seen. So we'd bring up things that you or I would say, well, of course this happened, and it would be complete news to them. Tune into Fox, tune into even Joe Rogan now is kind of moving more conservative. And I think you saw evidence of that in the last election, that people are starting to do that.
Or the continuum of the Overton windows moving left. I think he might be moving a little bit to the right, but yeah. Functionally.
And then for Republicans, use it as the tool it was designed for. So use it to kind of analyze what's going on. And again, to reach, I'm joked with a couple of people I've met with saying, Christmas is right around the corner. What better stocking stuffer for your liberal in-laws than this book, or for your nieces and nephews who are in high school or college. So basically spread the word is what I'm looking for.
Well, where can folks find the book? Where can they buy it?
So any of the online bookstores. So you can just go and search for Why Democrats Are Dangerous, and you will find it. I have a copy here I can bring up. It's got a lovely looking donkey on the cover. Can you see that?
Yeah, there you go.
So search for it on Amazon, and then also my if they can follow me I'm on Facebook, X, Truth Social, and Reddit right now.
Okay. And
just search on my name. It's either going to be my name or Drew Baker and then WDAD after it for Why Democrats Are Dangerous.
Gotcha.
And then my website should be drewbakerwdad.com.
Thank you for joining us today. Any final words? Obviously, we want everybody to go get the book and read it and give it as gifts. And
I guess, following what I want other people to do, my email address is also drewbakerwdad@gmail. So if any of your listeners have any questions, I'm happy to respond to them. And I'm also happy to speak at no charge to any group that's interested. And I'm also offering the book from almost a cost plus basis for anybody that wants to use it to fundraise. So, so, as an example, someone like Turning Point they could buy the book, at pretty much cost and sell it and, make 14 or 15 bucks a copy on it. By the way, that's another kind of one last thing here. Interestingly, most of the conservative sites that you'd think of, the RNC, Turning Point, sell hats and T-shirts and coffee mugs. They don't sell books. So not a single one that I've found. So I'm reaching out to them as well to say, might want to educate some people out there too.
Yeah. Well, when the Freedom Caucus gets our store up and running, which is coming soon, we'll definitely add a section for books and include this on there.
You've got your favorite already that I know you want there.
There we go. Easy enough.
Good.
Easy enough. Yes, sir. Well, Drew, again, thank you for being with us. Y'all check it out. Drew Baker, was it WDAD.com? And thanks for being with us on the current situation.
Okay, appreciate it. And my best to Joshua as well.
Thanks.
Okay.